Do you go to sleep at night and you wake up thinking about work? That is a serious red flag. What about having dinner with your significant other, and while you're taking a bite of food, you suddenly catch yourself thinking about a client that you have? Well, that's another red flag. That right there is a problem, and that is affecting your quality of life. Hi, I'm Steven. I teach people and companies about how to effectively manage stress in the workplace. Let me give you some truth bombs, and they're not going to be popular with your employer, I promise. The company that you work for doesn't give a bleep about you, and the second that you're no longer useful to them, you'll be replaced. Your job and your career are not who you are. It's not your life. It's what you do in order to earn money. You see, a salary or a paycheck is a drug that your employer gives you to forget your dreams. And when you begin to think of it on that level, suddenly your priorities begin to change. Now, that's what the pandemic did for a lot of people. For the very first time in our history, the world came to a complete stop, and people had a chance to begin evaluating their priorities and their lives. If you want to create a great work-life balance, you start by defining what your priorities are. What makes you happy? What kind of life do you want to live? Where do you want to be in 5 years as a human being? So I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about quality of life. I'm not talking about a career path that you're going to take. All of that is irrelevant. What I'm talking about is, who do you want to be? What do you want to be? What does your life look like 5 years from now from a quality of life perspective? Well, now is the time to begin developing the skills to ensure that that can be a reality. But it can only be a reality if you first start by defining what your priorities are and who you want to be, and all of that determines the kind of happiness that you seek. You see, happiness is a choice. You can choose to be happy right now. The problem is, we grow up learning skills to attach our happiness to things, people, and places. And that is a trap. And it's called desire. That's a trap that was designed by billionaires who needed worker bees to work in their organizations. So when we take you out of that mindset, we give you the power that you already have to make the choices for your life and determine for yourself what your life should actually be. Define for yourself what happiness is to you. What does joy look like for you? What does contentment mean to you? When you start answering these questions, you then create a blueprint that you can use to design that work-life balance. And what we always find is that people put happiness and contentment way above work life. And so when we make that clear, defining path between the two, we start to realize that you are not your job. It's just a job. Now, of course, you want to do it to the very best of your ability. You want to meet your KPIs and do all of the things that you need to within. But when that clock ticks 5, it's time to go home. You turn it off, you let it go, because it's of no value to you in that moment. It's only valuable to the company, and they hate me when I tell the truth. But to maintain a healthy work-life balance, you start by identifying your priorities. Then you develop a strategy that will serve both you and the company. So after you learn what these priorities are, you then have to create a strategy to implement them in your own life in a way that's going to serve both you and the company. But the secret is that you come first, because happy employees make a great company. But when you don't have a company that doesn't have a great culture inside, or it has a toxic culture, you're not going to have happy employees, and therefore the company ultimately will not function at ultimate levels, and that directly affects revenue. So I'll give you an example. In my company, I pay people really, really well. and I pay them above industry standards and then some. And I have a little habit that a lot of people find strange, and sometimes they don't know how to understand it. But I'll ask someone, what do you think your value is that you're bringing to this company? How much do you think is fair to be paid for the position that you're applying for? And they'll tell me, and then I'll raise it. That creates happiness from day one. That tells that person that I value them more than I value the work that they're going to do for me, and that I respect you as a human being because I'm willing to go above and beyond what you're even asking for. What I find when I do that is that it creates loyalty and it creates a work ethic among those people that is far superior to most corporations, because when you show the people that you truly care about them and you value them and you want them to be happy in the role that they're performing, they're going to give you their best self. And that's really all that you can ask. You know, when you have happy workers, you have a happy company. And there's a way to do that by over-delivering. So if I over-deliver on my end, they're more likely to over-deliver on their end as well. And to be able to maintain a healthy work-life balance, you need to learn to spot toxic people. Now, every company has them, and there's usually that one, we all know who it is, who's always coming up to your cubicle and going, "Did you hear what Johnny had to say?" That's toxic. And in my workplace seminars, I always teach people how to spot the toxic people, and I call this chapter, "Is It You?" We all know that one person in the office who's always talking about people, and that is someone that you want to pay attention to, and you want to keep them at arm's length. Hang out with someone who's talking about concepts. You know, that's someone that you want to get closer to because that person is a creative, critical thinker. They are a person that's not going to waste their time talking about people because that's very low vibrational. When you're talking about people, it's usually always negative. Even when it sounds like it's positive, it's rooted in negativity because that's what gossip is. It's never positive in the end. So it's always something wrong with them because what they're doing is they're coming to you and they want validation from you about how they feel is correct. And that is toxic workplace behavior. So in the workplace, having the skill of being able to spot those toxic people, and we all know who they are, is key. You need to be able to create a barrier between you and them, and that actually makes your life less stressful at work. So now that you know who and what that person is, you can keep them over there. It allows you to have a greater sense of productivity in your work life because you're not having to deal with that toxic person that maybe just is wanting to stir the poop pot and sit back and watch it swirl. Now, an important skill that you should have in the workplace is conflict resolution. It's a series of skills, and in fact, they teach it to FBI agents at Quantico, Virginia. I used to do a whole lecture where I would go in and teach law enforcement how people are deceived, why they are deceived, and how it relates to their religious beliefs and how religion uses these strategies to deceive people to keep that money coming in the door. And as a professional magician, I learned a thing or two about deception. So when you encounter someone at work who has toxic traits or toxic work habits, there's a way that you can deal with them in a way that doesn't alert them to their toxicity. Because if you open that can of worms, they're going to become defensive and they might make you the enemy. So you don't want them to know that you're onto them. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? What you want to do is develop the skill set to be able to manage their toxicity in a way that doesn't affect your job performance. So once you know what they are, you can develop a strategy to mitigate those toxic traits. Now, there's a wide variety of things that you can use, and I'll give you an example. If you want someone to go away from you, just stare at the center of their forehead right here. They don't know that you're not looking into their eyes, but on a subliminal level, your brain picks it up and makes them feel uncomfortable. And they will simply go away after a few minutes because they don't know why you are making them feel uncomfortable. But they will have this icky feeling in their body and they don't know what you're doing, and they'll start to feel like that you don't believe them. And so then they realize that you're not buying what they're selling and they go away because of the uncomfortable feeling they're experiencing inside. So that's a very sneaky tactic of being able to mitigate the toxicity of that one person in your office. Discovering the relationship between work and home life is not easy on your own. Now, it might take some time, but small daily or weekly habits can make a huge difference in the long run. If you need help in building out a plan to improve your work-life balance, my personalized mentoring program can really help. I'll link my website for you below. Take care of yourself and each other, and I'll see you there.